evening sky over Virginia was turning orange and purple as Colonel David Kim drove through the quiet streets of Oakwood Heights. He was tired. It had been a long day at the Pentagon, filled with meetings and reports that seemed to go on forever. All he wanted now was to get home to his wife and 2 kids, maybe have a hot meal and relax on the couch. David drove his modest gray sedan carefully. He always followed the traffic rules. After 23 years in the Army, following rules had become second nature to him. He stayed at the speed limit. He used his turn signals. He kept both hands on the wheel. These were simple things, but they mattered. The neighborhood around him was nice. Big houses with perfect lawns, new cars and driveways, streetlights just starting to flicker on. This area was close to the military base, so many families here had someone in service. David had lived here for 5 years now. His kids went to the local school. His wife knew the neighbors. This was home. In his rear-view mirror, David noticed red and blue lights. A police car was behind him, lights flashing. His heart sank a little, but he stayed calm. He checked his speed. He was going exactly the limit. He had not run any stop signs. He could not think of anything he had done wrong. David put on his turn signal and slowly pulled over to the side of the road. He rolled down his window and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen clearly. His father had taught him this when he was 16. His father, who had come to America from Korea with nothing, had given him this advice. When police stop you, be calm. Be polite, keep your hands visible. Do everything slowly. The police car stopped behind him. David could see one officer in the car. He waited. His hand stayed on the wheel. He did not reach for anything. He did not move except to breathe. The officer who got out of the car was white, tall, and built like someone who spent a lot of time at the gym. His uniform was neat and his badge caught the streetlight. His name tag said Hutchins. Officer Brett Hutchins walked toward David's car with slow, heavy steps. His hand rested on his belt near his gun. David watched in his side mirror as the officer approached. Something about the way Hutchins walked made David uneasy. There was tension in the officer's body, an aggressive energy. David had seen it before in soldiers who were looking for a fight. License and registration, Hutchins said when he reached the window. He did not say hello. He did not say why he had pulled David over. He just stood there staring down with hard eyes. Of course, officer, David said in his calmest voice. May I ask why you stopped me? Just give me your license and registration, Hutchins repeated. His tone was sharp. David moved his hands very slowly. I am reaching for my wallet now, he said clearly. It is in my back pocket. He pulled out his wallet and took out his driver's license. Then he reached toward the glove box. My registration is in the glove compartment, he explained before opening it. Hutchins watched every movement like a hawk watching a mouse. David handed over both documents through the window. The officer looked at the license under his flashlight. His eyes narrowed when he saw the name. David Kim, he read aloud. Where are you from? I live here in Oakwood Heights, David answered. About 3 miles from here. No, I mean, where are you really from? Hutchins asked. There was something ugly in his tone. David felt a familiar tiredness settle over him. He had heard this question many times in his life. I was born in Seattle, Washington, he said evenly. I have lived in the United States my entire life. Hutchins made a sound that might have been a laugh. Sure you were. He looked at the registration. This your car? Yes, sir. As you can see on the registration. Step out of the vehicle, Hutchins ordered suddenly. David felt his pulse quicken, but he kept his voice steady. May I ask what violation I committed? I said step out of the vehicle. Hutchins's hand moved closer to his gun. At that moment, another police car pulled up behind the first one. A second officer got out. This one was Hispanic, shorter than Hutchins with a tired face. His name tag read Rodriguez. Everything okay here, Brett? Rodriguez called out as he walked up. Just doing a traffic stop, Hutchins answered without looking at his partner. His eyes stayed locked on David. Rodriguez looked at David, then at Hutchins. Something passed across his face. Concern maybe, or recognition of a situation he had seen before. Officer, I would like to know what traffic violation I committed, David said again. He kept his tone respectful but firm. I have the right to know why I was stopped. You have an attitude problem, Hutchins snapped. That is your problem. Now get out of the car or I will arrest you for resisting. Rodriguez shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Brett, maybe we should just— I have got this, Rodriguez. Hutchins cut him off. David made a decision. He could refuse and demand to know the legal reason for the stop. He was within his rights, but he had seen situations like this go very wrong. He had soldiers under his command who had faced worse. Sometimes the smart choice was to comply and fight the battle later. I'm stepping out now, David said clearly. He opened his door slowly and got out of the car. He kept his hands visible at all times. As soon as David was standing, Hutchins grabbed his shoulder and spun him around roughly. David's chest hit the hood of his car hard. The metal was still warm from the engine. Hands on the hood, Hutchins ordered. Spread your legs. David complied. He put his palms flat on the hood of his car and spread his feet apart. The position was humiliating. He was a colonel in the United States Army. He had commanded hundreds of soldiers. He had served his country in 3 different combat zones, and now he was being treated like a criminal on the street where he lived. Rodriguez stood a few feet away watching. David could see him in his peripheral vision. The second officer looked uncomfortable. His hands were in his pockets. He was not participating, but he was not stopping it either. Hutchins began patting David down. His hands were rough and aggressive. This was not a professional search. This was designed to intimidate. So where are you really from, Kim? Hutchins asked as he searched. How long you been in this country? David did not answer. He stared straight ahead at the houses across the street. Lights were on in windows. He wondered if anyone was watching this. He wondered if anyone would care. I asked you a question, Hutchins said, pressing harder against David's back. I already answered that question, David replied quietly. You people come here and think you own the place, Hutchins muttered, driving around in neighborhoods where you do not belong. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Brett, come on, man. Stay out of this, Hutchins shot back. David closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his son, who was 12. He thought about having to explain this to him. How do you tell your child that sometimes it does not matter if you follow all the rules? Sometimes it does not matter if you are a good person who works hard and serves your country. Sometimes all that matters is what you look like. Hutchins's hands went into David's pockets. He pulled out keys, some change, a piece of gum. Then he pulled out David's wallet again. He had already seen the driver's license, but now he opened the wallet fully and started going through it. David heard Hutchins stop moving. The pressure on his back eased slightly. There was silence for a long moment. Rodriguez, Hutchins said. His voice had changed. The aggressive edge was gone. Now he sounded uncertain. Rodriguez, come look at this. The second officer walked over. David could hear their boots on the pavement. He stayed perfectly still with his hands on the hood. Is that what I think it is? Rodriguez asked quietly. David knew what they had found. His military identification card, the one with his rank clearly printed on it. Colonel, 06, one of the highest ranks an officer could achieve. The hands on his back disappeared completely. David waited. He did not move. He barely breathed, sir, Rodriguez said. The word came out careful and respectful. Sir, are you stationed at the base nearby? David slowly pushed himself up from the hood of the car. He turned around and looked at both officers. Hutchins was holding his military ID like it might burn him. The officer's face had gone pale. I work at the Pentagon, David said calmly. I am a liaison officer for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Hutchins opened his mouth, but no words came out. Officer Hutchins stood there holding the military ID card between his thumb and finger. His hand was shaking slightly. The aggressive confidence he had shown just moments ago had completely disappeared. Now he looked like a man who had just realized he made a terrible mistake. Rodriguez stepped closer and looked at the ID card over his partner's shoulder. His eyes went wide when he saw the eagle insignia that marked David's rank. Colonel, he said quietly, almost like he was talking to himself. Full bird colonel. David stood very still. His back hurt where Hutchins had pressed him against the car. His shoulder was sore from being grabbed and spun around. But his mind was clear and calm. Years of military training had taught him how to stay controlled even when his emotions wanted to take over. I asked you a question, Officer Rodriguez, David said. His voice was level but firm. It was the voice he used when giving orders to soldiers. Yes, I work at the Pentagon. I have been serving in the United States Army for 23 years. Hutchins tried to hand the ID back to David, but his hand was still shaking. Sir, This was just a routine traffic stop. Just checking the area for a routine traffic stop, David interrupted. He kept his eyes locked on Hutchins. "Officer, you pulled me over without stating a violation. You ordered me out of my vehicle without probable cause. You searched me without my consent, and you made several inappropriate comments about my background and whether I belong in this neighborhood." "I did not mean anything by that," Hutchins said quickly. The color was coming back to his face now, but it was red instead of pale. "I was just making conversation." "Making conversation," David repeated. He felt anger building in his chest, but he kept it locked down. Getting angry now would not help. Facts would help. Truth would help. "Officer Hutchins, before you ordered me out of the car, did you tell me why you pulled me over?" Hutchins looked at Rodriguez as if hoping his partner would help him. Rodriguez looked away at the ground. "No," David continued. "You did not. You demanded my license and registration. When I asked why I was stopped, you told me to just hand them over. That is not legal procedure, is it?" "Look, sir, I think there has been a misunderstanding here." Hutchins tried again. He was smiling now, but it looked forced and fake. "These things happen. No harm done, right? You can go home now." David did not move toward his car. "I want your badge number," he said. "And your name, which I already know from your uniform. And the name of your supervisor." The fake smile dropped from Hutchins's face. "Sir, that is not necessary." "Like I said, you are free to go." "I am not going anywhere until I get that information," David said. "I am filing a formal complaint." "A complaint?" Hutchins's voice rose. "For what?" "I was doing my job." "Your job is to protect and serve," David said. "Your job is not to harass people who are driving home after work. Your job is not to make assumptions about people based on their name or appearance." Rodriguez finally spoke up. "Brett, maybe we should just give him the information. Let him talk to Sergeant Hayes." "Shut up, Rodriguez," Hutchins snapped. Then he seemed to realize what he had said and tried to soften it. "I mean, this is my stop. I will handle it." A porch light came on across the street. David glanced over and saw an elderly white woman standing on her front steps. She was wearing a robe and slippers. Her white hair was pulled back in a bun. She was watching them. "Everything all right over there?" the woman called out. "Everything is fine, ma'am," Hutchins called back. "Police business. You can go inside." But the woman did not go inside. Instead, she walked down her front steps and started crossing the street toward them. She moved slowly but with purpose. "Mrs. Patterson, please go back to your house," Hutchins said louder. There was an edge to his voice that sounded like a warning. "I will do no such thing," the elderly woman said. She came right up to the group of them and looked at David with kind eyes. "Young man, are you all right?" "I saw what happened from my window." "I am fine, ma'am," David said. "Thank you for asking." Mrs. Patterson turned to look at Hutchins. Despite being a foot shorter than the officer, she somehow made him seem small. "I saw you pull this man over," she said. "I watched the whole thing. He did not do anything wrong. He was driving the speed limit. He did not run any lights. He did not break any laws." "Ma'am, you need to step back," Hutchins said. "This is official police business." "This is my neighborhood," Mrs. Patterson shot back. "I have lived on this street for 42 years. I know police business when I see it, and I know harassment when I see it too." Another porch light came on, then another. More people were coming outside now. A black couple from 2 houses down started walking over. A young white man with a phone in his hand came from across the street. He was pointing his phone at the scene, recording everything. Hutchins noticed the phone and his face went even redder. "Sir, please put that away," he said to the young man. "I am standing on a public street recording public servants doing their public duty," the young man said. "That is my right." The black couple reached the group. The woman spoke first. "Officer Hutchins," she said. Her voice was cold. "We meet again." Hutchins looked at her and recognition flashed across his face. "Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson." "You remember us," Mrs. Thompson said. "Good. Do you remember pulling my husband over 6 months ago? Do you remember telling him he did not belong in this neighborhood? Do you remember making him sit on the curb for 45 minutes while you called in his license plate?" Mr. Thompson stood next to his wife with his arms crossed. "I filed a complaint about that stop," he said. "Never heard anything back. Funny how that works." More neighbors were gathering now. David looked around at all the faces. Some he recognized from waving hello when he drove past. Some he had never seen before. But they were all here now and they were all watching. Rodriguez pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. Can you send Sergeant Hayes to our location? We need a supervisor. Hutchins shot his partner an angry look. I did not tell you to do that. Someone needs to, Rodriguez said quietly. He would not look Hutchins in the eye. Your sergeant is coming? Mrs. Patterson asked. She nodded with approval. Good, I have some things to say to her. Hutchins ran his hand through his hair. He looked like a man trapped in a corner. Everyone needs to go home. This is over. The gentleman is free to go. The gentleman has a name, Mrs. Thompson said. Or did you not bother to ask? My name is David Kim, David said. He looked at all the neighbors who had come to stand nearby. I live 3 miles from here. I was driving home from work when Officer Hutchins pulled me over. He did not tell me why. He refused to tell me why. He demanded I get out of my car. He searched me without probable cause, and he made comments suggesting I do not belong in this area. The young man recording on his phone moved closer to get a better angle. All of this is being recorded, he said. Live stream. Already got about 200 people watching. Hutchins looked like he wanted to grab the phone, but he did not. He knew that would make things even worse. The sound of another police car approaching cut through the tension. Everyone turned to watch as a patrol car pulled up behind the first two. A woman in uniform got out. She was in her late 40s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that took in the whole scene immediately. Sergeant Linda Hayes had seen a lot in her 25 years as a police officer. She had worked her way up from patrol to sergeant through hard work and fair dealing. She had a reputation for being tough but honest. Officers respected her. The community respected her. She walked up to the group and immediately turned to David. Sir, are you injured? Do you need medical attention? David appreciated that her first concern was for his welfare. No, Sergeant. I'm not injured, Hayes nodded. Then she looked at Hutchins and Rodriguez. Which one of you wants to tell me what happened here? Rodriguez started to speak, but Hutchins cut him off. Routine traffic stop, Sarge. The gentleman was free to go, but he started making accusations. Is that so? Hayes looked at David. Sir, what is your version of events? David took a breath and began talking. He told her everything. The stop without stated cause, the demands for documents, the refusal to explain the reason for the stop, the order to exit the vehicle, the rough treatment, the inappropriate questions about where he was really from. He spoke clearly and calmly, giving just the facts without emotion. Hayes listened without interrupting. Her face got harder with every sentence. When David finished, she asked, Did Officer Hutchins tell you at any point why he pulled you over? No, Sergeant. He did not. Hayes turned to Hutchins. Brett, what was the reason for the stop? The vehicle matched a description, Hutchins said quickly. We had reports of suspicious activity in the area. What description? Hayes asked. What suspicious activity? What reports? Hutchins opened his mouth, but nothing came out right away. He looked like a student who had been called on in class without knowing the answer. There were reports, he said again, but his voice was weaker now. What reports? Sergeant Hayes repeated. Her tone was sharper. I need specifics, Officer Hutchins. What was reported? When was it reported? What was the description of the vehicle? It was a gray sedan, Hutchins said, gesturing at David's car. Just like that one, Hayes looked at the car. Then she looked up and down the street. I see 4 other gray sedans just on this block, she said. That is not probable cause for a stop. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. Sergeant Hayes, I need to tell you something. I was sitting in my living room watching television. I saw Mr. Kim drive past my house. He was going the speed limit. He was not driving suspiciously. About 2 minutes later, Officer Hutchins drove past, then turned around and went after him. There was no reason for it that I could see. Hayes pulled out a small notebook and started writing. Mrs. Patterson, would you be willing to give an official statement? Absolutely, the elderly woman said firmly. Mr. Thompson raised his hand. Sergeant, I want to give a statement, too, about what Officer Hutchins did to me 6 months ago. His wife nodded. Me too, I was there. I saw everything. Hayes wrote down their names. Then she looked at Rodriguez. Officer Rodriguez, you were backup on this stop. What did you observe when you arrived? Rodriguez looked very uncomfortable. He glanced at Hutchins, then at the ground, then finally at Hayes. When I got here, Officer Hutchins had already pulled the vehicle over. The driver was standing outside the vehicle with his hands on the hood. Hutchins was conducting a search. Did you see any suspicious behavior from the driver? Hayes asked. No, Sergeant. Did Officer Hutchins tell you why he pulled the vehicle over? Rodriguez hesitated. He said it was a routine traffic stop. That is not what I asked, Hayes said. Did he tell you what traffic violation he observed? No, Sergeant. He did not. Hayes made more notes. Then she pulled out her department tablet and pulled up something on the screen. Officer Hutchins, your patrol car has a dashboard camera. Is that correct? Hutchins's face went pale again. Yes. Then we should have video of this entire stop, Hayes said. She tapped on the screen a few times. David watched as her eyes moved back and forth, following something she was watching. Her jaw got tighter with each second. After 2 minutes, she looked up. Her eyes were hard as stone when she looked at Hutchins. Officer Hutchins, this video shows Mr. Kim driving normally. It shows you pulling him over without any visible traffic violation. It shows him complying with every order. And it has audio. The street had gone very quiet. Even the insects seemed to have stopped making noise. Sergeant, I can explain, Hutchins started. I heard you ask Mr. Kim where he was really from. Hayes continued. Her voice was cold now. I heard you refuse to tell him why you stopped him. I heard you say, and I quote, people like you think you own the place. I heard you tell him he does not belong in this neighborhood. The young man with the phone made a low whistle. His live stream viewers had just gone over 1,000. David felt something loosen in his chest. The video evidence meant this was not just his word against an officer's word. The truth was recorded. It could not be denied or twisted. Hayes closed her tablet and looked at David. Sir, I need to apologize on behalf of this police department. What happened here was wrong. It was unprofessional. And I promise you there will be a full investigation. I appreciate that, Sergeant, David said. But I have heard those words before. Hayes met his eyes. I understand why you would be skeptical. Can I ask what you do for work, sir? David had not mentioned his military service yet to Hayes, though she had surely seen his ID. I am a colonel in the United States Army. I work at the Pentagon. Hayes closed her eyes for just a moment. When she opened them again, she looked even more determined. A colonel, one of our military officers harassed while driving home from serving his country. She turned back to Hutchins. This is even worse than I thought. It was a mistake, Hutchins said desperately. You just what? Mrs. Thompson interrupted. You just saw an Asian man and decided he did not belong here. You just decided that someone with a Korean name must be up to something? That is not what I meant, Hutchins said. Then what did you mean? Mr. Thompson demanded. When you told my wife and me that we were in the wrong neighborhood, what did you mean? When you made us prove we lived in our own house, what did you mean? More neighbors were speaking up now. An elderly black man raised his hand. He pulled me over last year. Asked if my car was stolen. It was not. I have owned that Buick for 15 years. A Hispanic woman in nursing scrubs spoke next. He stopped me 3 times in 1 month. Said my license plate looked suspicious. There was nothing wrong with my license plate. An Asian American woman with her hair in a messy bun added, he followed me home from the grocery store once, sat outside my house for 20 minutes just watching. My kids were scared. Hayes was writing as fast as she could. I need all of you to come to the station and give formal statements. This is not something I knew about. If there are patterns of behavior, I need to know. We filed complaints, Mr. Thompson said. Nothing happened. Who did you file complaints with? Hayes asked. Officer Davis took my complaint, the elderly black man said. He told me it would be looked into. Never heard anything. Hayes made a note of that name, too. Officer Davis retired 6 months ago. If he was taking complaints and not passing them up the chain, that explains some things. She looked genuinely angry now. Not at the people complaining, but at the system that had failed them. The young man recording spoke up. Sergeant, my video is going viral. It has been shared on social media about 5,000 times in the last 20 minutes. People are talking about this all over the county. Hayes nodded slowly. I figured that would happen. Sir, can you send me a link to that video? Already did, the young man said. I tagged the police department's official account. Of course you did, Hayes said, but there was no anger in her voice. Just tiredness. David watched all of this unfold around him. He had not expected this many people to come forward. He had not expected this much support. He had thought he would be alone in this, one man against a system that protected its own. But here were all these neighbors, all these witnesses, all standing up to say this was wrong. Hayes turned back to Hutchins. Officer Hutchins, you are suspended from duty immediately pending investigation. I need your service weapon and your badge. What? Hutchins looked shocked. You cannot do that. I have rights. Yes, you do, Hayes agreed. And those rights will be respected during the investigation. But I cannot have an officer on the street when there are this many complaints and video evidence of inappropriate conduct. Give me your badge and weapon. Hutchins looked like he wanted to argue more, but Hayes's expression stopped him. Slowly, he unclipped his badge from his uniform and handed it over. Then he removed his service weapon and holster and gave those to Hayes as well. Officer Rodriguez, Hayes said, did you witness any of the behavior these people are describing? Have you seen Officer Hutchins engage in stops that seem to target people based on race? Rodriguez looked torn. David could see the struggle on his face. Finally, he nodded. Yes, Sergeant. I have. Did you report those incidents? No, Sergeant. I did not. Hayes took a deep breath. Then you are suspended as well. Badge and weapon. Sergeant, Rodriguez started. You witnessed misconduct and did not report it, Hayes said. That makes you part of the problem. Badge and weapon now. Rodriguez removed his badge and weapon and handed them over. He looked relieved in a way, like he had been carrying something heavy and finally got to put it down. Hayes looked at David. Colonel Kim, I know you said you want to file a formal complaint. I will personally take your statement at the station. You can bring a lawyer if you want one. This will be handled properly, I give you my word. With respect, Sergeant, David said, I do not know you. I do not know if your word means anything. That is fair, Hayes said. She did not look offended. Let me tell you who I am. I have been with this department for 25 years. I have worked patrol. I have worked investigations, and now I supervise. I grew up in this county. My father was a cop. My brother is a cop. I know the good that police can do, but I also know that we have problems in this department. She looked around at all the people gathered. I cannot promise to fix everything overnight. I cannot promise that every complaint will result in punishment, but I can promise that I will not ignore what happened here tonight. I will not sweep it under the rug, and I will make sure that everyone who wants to give a statement gets heard. Mrs. Patterson spoke up. That is all we want, dear. To be heard. To be believed. To matter. Hayes nodded. You do matter. All of you matter. She turned back to David. Colonel Kim, can you come to the station tomorrow to give your statement? I can come tonight, David said. I want this on record as soon as possible. Tonight is fine, Hayes said. But I want to do this right. I want to have the video evidence ready. I want to have other officers present to witness the statement. And I want to make sure everything is documented properly. Can you give me 2 hours to set that up? David thought about it. 2 hours meant he would not get home until late. His wife would be worried. His kids would wonder where he was. But 2 hours also meant this would be done right. 2 hours, he agreed. Hayes gave him a card with her direct phone number. Call me if anything happens before then. Anything at all. Hutchins started walking toward his patrol car, but Hayes stopped him. Officer Hutchins, you are not driving a department vehicle home. You are suspended. I will have another officer take you home. This is ridiculous, Hutchins said. All of this because some guy got his feelings hurt? The words hung in the air like poison. David Kim walked into the Pentagon the next morning carrying a weight that had nothing to do with his briefcase. He had not slept much. After giving his statement to Sergeant Hayes the night before, he had driven home close to midnight. His wife Jennifer had been waiting up. She had seen the video online. Half the military community had seen it by then. Jennifer had held him for a long time without saying anything. What was there to say? They had been married for 15 years. She knew what it meant to be Asian American in a country that sometimes treated you like a guest instead of a citizen. She knew because she lived it too. But knowing about it and watching your husband be humiliated on video were two different things. Now David walked through the Pentagon hallways, aware that people were looking at him. Some met his eyes with sympathy. Some looked away quickly. By the time he reached his office, his assistant, Captain Sarah Chen, was already at her desk. She looked up when he entered. Sir, your phone has been ringing all morning, Sarah said. She was Korean American too. Daughter of immigrants, first in her family to join the military. News stations, advocacy groups, reporters. Everyone wants to talk to you. David sat down at his desk and rubbed his eyes. Tell them I have no comment at this time. Already did, sir. But they keep calling. She hesitated. The video has over 2 million views now. People are angry. David turned on his computer and immediately saw the emails. Dozens of them. some from fellow officers expressing support, some from soldiers he had commanded over the years, some from complete strangers who wanted to share their own stories of being pulled over for driving while not being white. One email was marked urgent. It was from his direct superior, General Robert Morrison. David clicked it open. "Colonel Kim, please come to my office immediately." David stood up. "Looks like the general wants to see me." Sarah nodded. "He called 3 times already this morning looking for you." General Morrison's office was on the 4th floor. David took the stairs instead of the elevator. He needed the time to think. What would the general say? Would he be angry that David was bringing negative attention to the military? Would he tell David to drop the complaint to avoid problems? By the time David reached the general's door, he had decided something. If they wanted him to be quiet, the answer would be no. This was bigger than his career. This was about every service member who had faced discrimination and felt they could not speak up because it might hurt their chances for promotion. He knocked on the door. "Come in," the general's voice called. Out, David entered and saluted. "Colonel Kim reporting as requested, sir." General Morrison returned the salute, then gestured to a chair. "Sit down, David." The use of his first name was unusual. They were not friends exactly. They worked together well and respected each other. But Morrison was old-school military. He did not usually get casual. David sat. Morrison sat too, which was even more unusual. Usually when the general wanted to talk to you, he stayed standing behind his desk. It was a power move. Sitting down meant this was a conversation, not a lecture. "I saw the video," Morrison said. He was a big man, white, with gray hair cut military short. He had served in the army for 30 years, starting as an enlisted man and working his way up. "I watched it 3 times. Made me sick to my stomach each time." David was not sure what to say, so he said nothing. "You served with me in Iraq," Morrison continued. "You were a captain then. I was a colonel. I watched you lead soldiers through some of the worst fighting that war saw. I watched you make decisions that saved lives. I recommended you for promotion twice. Yes, sir. I remember. And last night, some cop who probably never faced a day of real danger in his life treated you like a criminal for the crime of driving home." Morrison's jaw was tight. "That is not acceptable. Not to me, not to this military. Not to anyone who values what the uniform means." David felt something loosen in his chest. "Thank you, sir." "Do not thank me yet," Morrison said. "Because here is what is going to happen. I called the state attorney general this morning. Old friend from my time at Fort Hood. Told him about you, about what happened, about the video. He is launching an investigation into that police department. Sir, I appreciate that, but—" "I am not done," Morrison interrupted. "I also called the base commander at Fort Belvoir. Told him we need to look at all complaints from military personnel about local police. Because if this happened to you, a colonel, how many times has it happened to privates and corporals who felt they could not say anything?" David had not thought about that angle. "That is a good point, sir." "Damn right it is," Morrison said. He stood up and walked to the window. "I grew up in Georgia. Small town. My daddy was a mechanic. We did not have much money, but we were white. So we had privilege whether we wanted to admit it or not. I watched black kids in my school get treated different by teachers, by cops, by everyone. I told myself it was not my problem." He turned back to David. "I was wrong. It is everyone's problem. Because the army taught me something. We are all on the same team. When I send soldiers into combat, I do not care what color they are or where their parents came from. I care if they can do the job. And if they can do the job, they deserve respect everywhere, not just on base." "I agree, sir." "So here's what I need from you," Morrison said. "I need you to not back down from this. I need you to file every complaint, pursue every avenue, make as much noise as necessary, and I am going to back you up every step of the way." David had come into this office prepared to fight. Instead, he had found an ally. "Sir, I was not planning to back down." Morrison smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man ready for a fight. "Good, because they are going to come after you. Police unions are already releasing statements, calling you anti-cop, saying you are playing the race card, the usual playbook. Let them come," David said. "I have the truth on my side." "You do," Morrison agreed. "You also have 2 million people who watched that video and saw exactly what happened. You have neighbors who witnessed it. You have that sergeant who seems like she actually wants to do the right thing, and you have the United States military behind you. There was a knock on the door. Morrison's assistant stuck her head in. "Sir, the base commander is on line 1. "Tell him I will call him back in 5 minutes," Morrison said. The assistant left. Morrison turned back to David. "One more thing. I know you. You are going to try to keep your head down and just do your job. You are going to try to act like this did not happen, but I'm ordering you to take whatever time you need to deal with this properly. If you need to meet with lawyers, do it. If you need to give statements, do it. If you need to talk to reporters, do it. I would rather not talk to reporters, sir. I understand that. But think about all those young soldiers who have been through something similar. They need to see someone with rank and authority stand up and say this was wrong. They need to know they are not alone." David thought about the emails waiting on his computer, all those stories from other service members. Morrison was right. "I will think about it, sir," David said. "Think fast," Morrison said. "Because this story is not going away. Better to control the narrative than let someone else control it for you." David left the general's office with his mind spinning. He had spent his whole career trying to be invisible. Not invisible as a person, but invisible as an Asian American. He had worked hard to be judged only on his abilities, not on his background. He had wanted his accomplishments to speak for themselves. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe by trying so hard to not be seen as different, he had let others get away with treating him as different. Maybe it was time to stop being quiet. His phone buzzed. A text message from Captain Chen. "Sir, local news is outside the Pentagon asking for you. Security sent them away, but they say they will wait." David texted back. "Tell them I will give a statement at 2 p.m. Set it up in the press room." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Chen replied. "Are you sure, sir?" David typed his response. "Yes, time to stop hiding." The rest of the morning passed in a blur. David met with the Pentagon's Public Affairs Office to prepare for his statement. They advised him on what to say and what not to say. Keep it factual. Do not attack the police as a whole. Focus on this specific incident. Acknowledge that most officers are good people. Do not let emotion take over. At noon, David went to the cafeteria to get lunch. He spotted a group of young soldiers, enlisted personnel, eating at a corner table. They looked up when he walked past. One of them, a black private, stood up. "Colonel Kim, sir," the private said. "I just wanted to say thank you." David stopped. "Thank me for what, Private?" "For not letting them get away with it, sir. I got pulled over 3 times last month. Never did anything wrong. Just driving while black, you know. But I did not file complaints because I thought it would not matter. Watching you stand up makes me think maybe it does matter." The other soldiers at the table nodded. A Hispanic lance corporal spoke up. "My sister sent me the video last night. She is in college. She started crying when she saw it because it reminded her of when our dad got stopped by ICE even though he is a citizen. Born in Texas, they still demanded to see his papers." An Asian American sergeant added, "I have been in for 8 years, sir. Never told anyone about the times I got called a chink or asked where I learned to speak English so well. Figured it was just part of life, but maybe it should not be." David looked at these young faces. These were the people Morrison had talked about, the ones who needed to see someone stand up. "It should not be part of life," David said. "And if my speaking up helps even one of you feel like you can speak up too, then everything I am about to go through will be worth it." At 2 in the afternoon, David stood at a podium in the Pentagon press room. Cameras pointed at him from every angle. Reporters held recorders toward him. The room was packed. David stood at the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. Cameras flashed. Microphones were held up. The room was completely silent, waiting for him to speak. He had written notes but decided to leave them in his pocket. This needed to come from his heart, not from a piece of paper. "My name is Colonel David Kim," he began. "I have served in the United States Army for 23 years. I have been deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and South Korea. I have commanded soldiers in combat. I have been awarded medals for my service. I love this country. I love what the uniform represents." He paused and looked around the room. 2 nights ago, I was pulled over by a police officer while driving home from work. I was not speeding. I did not run any red lights. I did not break any laws. I was simply driving home to my family. But for reasons I still do not fully understand, Officer Brett Hutchins decided I was suspicious. He decided I did not belong in that neighborhood. He decided I needed to be searched and questioned. The room was still silent. David could see people taking notes furiously. When I asked why I was stopped, Officer Hutchins refused to tell me. When I complied with every order he gave, he still treated me like a criminal. He asked me where I was really from. He implied that I did not belong in America. And all of this happened while I was wearing civilian clothes after a day of serving this nation at the Pentagon. David felt his voice getting stronger. I am not telling this story to attack all police officers. I know many good officers. Sergeant Linda Hayes, who responded to the scene, handled the situation with professionalism and integrity. There are thousands of officers like her who do their jobs with honor. But there are also officers like Brett Hutchins who let their prejudices guide their actions. And when those officers are not held accountable, they create danger for everyone. A reporter raised her hand. Colonel Kim, some people are saying you are playing the race card. What do you say to that? David looked directly at the camera. I say that playing the race card is not possible when race is the reason you got targeted in the first place. I did nothing wrong. The only suspicious thing about me was my face and my name. If that is not about race, then I do not know what is. Another reporter spoke up. The police union released a statement saying Officer Hutchins was just doing his job in a high-crime area. Your response? The neighborhood where I was stopped has the lowest crime rate in the county, David said. That statement is factually incorrect. But more than that, it reveals the problem. They called it a high-crime area, only after an Asian American man was stopped there. That tells you everything you need to know about their assumptions. More hands went up. David pointed to a young Asian American reporter in the front row. Colonel Kim, what do you want to happen as a result of this incident? David had thought about this question all morning. I want accountability. I want Officer Hutchins to face consequences for his actions. I want the police department to investigate why previous complaints about him were ignored. I want training programs that actually work to prevent bias. I want a system where people can file complaints without fear that nothing will happen. And most importantly, I want this to be the last time a service member gets harassed while driving home from defending this country. The questions kept coming for another 30 minutes. David answered each one honestly and directly. He did not back down. He did not apologize. He simply told the truth. When the press conference ended, David felt exhausted, but he also felt something else. Relief. He had used his voice. He had stood up not just for himself, but for everyone who had been through something similar. Captain Chen met him outside the press room. Sir, that was incredible. The phones are already ringing. People want to support you. Good, David said. Let me know who calls. I want to hear their stories. Over the next 3 days, David's world changed completely. The video of his traffic stop had been viewed over 5 million times. News stations across the country picked up the story. Social media was filled with people sharing their own experiences of being profiled by police. But not all the attention was positive. The police union held their own press conference. They accused David of trying to destroy a good officer's career. They said he was using his military rank to bully police. They said the stop was completely justified and that David was twisting the facts. David watched their press conference from his office. He felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. Getting emotional would not help. Facts would help. Evidence would help. His phone rang. It was Sergeant Hayes. Colonel Kim, I wanted to give you an update on the investigation, she said. We have gone through Officer Hutchins's records for the past 2 years. We found 43 traffic stops. 39 of those stops involved people of color. Of those 39 stops, only 3 resulted in actual citations. The pattern is clear and undeniable. What happens now? David asked. The department is recommending termination, Hayes said. But the union will fight it. It could take months, maybe longer. And Rodriguez? Officer Rodriguez has agreed to testify about what he witnessed. He is also enrolled in additional training. His suspension will be lifted after 90 days, but he will be on probation for a year. David thought about Rodriguez. The man had made mistakes by staying silent, but at least he was willing to admit it and try to do better. Thank you for the update, Sergeant. There is something else, Hayes said. We reviewed complaints filed with the department over the past 5 years. We found 12 other complaints about Officer Hutchins, all from people of color. All were dismissed or marked as unfounded by the officers who took the complaints. I am recommending those cases be reopened and investigated properly. 12 complaints, David said quietly. 12 people who tried to speak up and were ignored. Yes, sir. And I want to apologize for that. I should have known. I should have been paying closer attention. This department failed those people. What are you doing about the officers who dismissed those complaints? David asked. 2 of them are retired. Nothing we can do about them now. 3 others are still with the department. They are under investigation for failure to properly document and report complaints. If we find they deliberately buried complaints to protect Hutchins, they will be terminated. David appreciated Hayes's honesty. Sergeant, can I ask you something? Why are you working so hard on this? Most officers would try to protect their own. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Hayes spoke. My daughter is Mexican-American. My ex-husband was from Mexico. Our daughter looks like him. When she was 16, she got pulled over by a cop from another county. He asked her for immigration papers even though she showed him her license. She was born in this country, but to him she looked illegal. Hayes's voice got thick. She came home crying. She said she felt like she did not belong in her own country. I was still in uniform when she told me, and I realized that I was part of a system that made my own daughter feel that way. So I decided I could either quit or I could try to fix it from the inside. I chose to stay and fight. I am glad you did, David said sincerely. After hanging up with Hayes, David sat at his desk and thought about all the people this affected. It was not just him. It was Hayes's daughter. It was the young soldiers who had thanked him in the cafeteria. It was the 12 people whose complaints were ignored. It was every person who had ever been pulled over for the crime of looking different. His computer pinged with a new email. It was from the local NAACP chapter. They were holding a town hall meeting about police and community relations. They wanted David to speak. David stared at the invitation. A month ago, he would have said no. He would have stayed quiet and hoped things would blow over. But that was before Hutchins put him against his car, before he saw the video, before he heard from all the other people who had been through the same thing. He clicked reply and typed, "I will be there." The town hall meeting was held at a church in the center of town. When David arrived, the parking lot was full. He had to park 3 blocks away and walk. As he got closer, he could see people streaming into the building, old and young, white and black and Hispanic and Asian, military uniforms and civilian clothes, everyone coming together. Inside, the church was packed. Every pew was full. People stood along the walls. The air was thick with anticipation and anger and hope all mixed together. David was led to a seat on the stage. He recognized some of the other people sitting there. Sergeant Hayes was there. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson were there. Mrs. Patterson was there. The young man who had recorded the video was there. And several other people David had never met, but whose faces told stories of their own struggles. The meeting was led by Dr. Marcus Williams, president of the local NAACP chapter. He was an elderly black man with white hair and kind eyes that had seen too much injustice. "We are here tonight because something happened that should never happen," Dr. Williams began. "A military officer, a man who has served this country with honor, was harassed and humiliated by someone who was supposed to protect and serve. But we are also here because this is not new. This has been happening for years, for decades, for generations, and tonight we say enough." The crowd erupted in applause. David felt the energy in the room. This was bigger than one traffic stop. This was about every time someone was judged by their skin color instead of their character. Every time someone was made to feel like a stranger in their own country. One by one, people came to the microphone to tell their stories. A black teenager described being stopped on his way to school and told he looked like a gang member. He was wearing his ROTC uniform at the time. A Hispanic mother shared how police questioned whether her children were really hers because she had darker skin than they did. An Asian American business owner talked about being followed by security in stores, despite owning 3 successful restaurants in town. Each story added to the weight in the room. Each story proved this was not about one bad officer. It was about a system that treated some people as suspects instead of citizens. Finally, Dr. Williams called David to the microphone. The room went silent as David stood and walked to the front. He looked out at all the faces watching him, waiting to hear what he would say. "I did not want to be here," David began. His voice was quiet but clear. "I did not want to be the face of this movement. I did not want any of this attention. All I wanted was to drive home from work, but sometimes you do not get to choose your moments. Sometimes the moments choose you. He took a breath and continued. I am a colonel in the United States Army. That means something to me. It means I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. It means I promised to protect this country and its people. But here is what I have learned over the past week. You cannot truly protect a country if some of its people do not feel safe in it. Heads nodded throughout the room. When Officer Hutchins pulled me over, he did not see a colonel. He did not see a man who had served his country for over 2 decades. He did not see a father or a husband or a neighbor. He saw my face. He saw my name. And he decided I was suspicious. He decided I did not belong. David's voice got stronger. But here is what he got wrong. I do belong. We all belong. Every person in this room belongs. This is our country too. We defend it. We work in it. We raise our families in it. We pay our taxes in it. We love it despite its flaws. And we have every right to drive down the street without being harassed. The crowd erupted in applause. David waited for it to quiet down. I know some people are uncomfortable with this conversation. They say we are being divisive. They say we are attacking police. They say we should just comply and everything will be fine. But I did comply. I did everything right. And I still ended up pressed against my car, being searched for no reason, being told I did not belong in my own neighborhood. He looked directly at Chief Webb, who was sitting in the front row. Chief Webb, I know you are trying to make changes. I know you face resistance from your own department. I know this is not easy. But I need you to understand something. Every day you do not hold officers accountable for racial profiling. You tell every person of color in this community that we do not matter, that our safety does not matter, that our dignity does not matter. Chief Webb met his eyes and nodded slowly. David turned back to the crowd. 3 months ago, Officer Brett Hutchins was found guilty of civil rights violations. He was sentenced to probation and community service. He lost his badge. He can never work in law enforcement again. Some people think that is too harsh. Some people think that is not harsh enough. I think it is just the beginning. He paused and looked at Sergeant Hayes. Because real change does not come from punishing one bad officer. Real change comes from fixing the system that protected him for so long. Real change comes from officers like Sergeant Hayes who are brave enough to hold their colleagues accountable. Real change comes from communities that refuse to stay silent. David gestured to the other people on the stage. These people behind me have all been through something similar. They filed complaints, they spoke up, and for years nobody listened. But tonight, we are listening. Tonight, we are saying, we believe you. Tonight, we are saying this ends now. The applause was thunderous. David felt tears in his eyes but blinked them back. So what do we do now? David asked. We hold our police department to the promise of reform. We make sure body cameras are always on. We make sure complaints are actually investigated. We make sure the Civilian Review Board has real power. We show up to city council meetings. We ask questions. We demand answers. We do not go away until we see real change. He looked around the room one more time. I am a colonel, but I am also just a man. I cannot fix this alone. None of us can. But together, we can make this community better. Together, we can make this country live up to its promises. Together, we can create a place where my kids and your kids can drive home without fear. David stepped back from the microphone. The crowd rose to its feet. The applause went on for 2 full minutes. After the town hall ended, David was surrounded by people wanting to talk, to share their stories, to say thank you. He stayed for 2 hours, listening to everyone who needed to be heard. An elderly Korean War veteran with tears in his eyes shook David's hand. I fought for this country in 1951, the old man said. I came home and people still treated me like I was the enemy. I thought things would be different for your generation. I am glad you are fighting to make them different. A young black woman in an army uniform approached him. Sir, I am a private first class. I got pulled over last month near the base. The officer asked if my car was stolen. I did not know what to do, but watching you stand up gave me courage. I filed a complaint yesterday. Good, David said. Do not ever let anyone make you feel like you do not have the right to speak up. 6 months after the town hall meeting, David sat in his office at the Pentagon reading an email from Sergeant Hayes. She had been promoted to lieutenant. She was now in charge of the new Accountability and Community Relations Division. The department had implemented all the reforms they had promised. Body cameras were mandatory. A civilian review board was operational. Bias training was now required every 3 months instead of once a year. But more importantly, complaints were being taken seriously. In the 6 months since David's traffic stop, the department had investigated 17 complaints of racial profiling. 3 officers had been terminated. 5 others were on probation. The message was clear. This behavior would not be tolerated anymore. David also read that the base commander had established a liaison program between the military and local police. Officers came to the base for training on military culture. Service members met with police to discuss concerns. The relationship was improving slowly but steadily. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Don't forget dinner with the Thompsons tonight at 7. David smiled. He had become friends with Mr. and Mrs. Thompson over the past months. They had been through similar experiences and understood each other in a way that did not require many words. Their monthly dinners had become something David looked forward to. As he packed up his briefcase to head home, Captain Chen knocked on his door. Sir, you have a call. It is from a young Marine stationed in California. He says he was pulled over and wants advice on what to do. David looked at his watch. He should leave now to avoid traffic. But this Marine had reached out for help. How could he say no? Put him through, David said. Over the next 30 minutes, David listened to the young Marine's story. It was depressingly familiar. Pulled over for no reason. Aggressive treatment. Inappropriate questions. David gave the same advice Sergeant Hayes had given him. Document everything. File a formal complaint. Do not let them intimidate you into staying quiet. Will anything actually happen? The Marine asked. Or will they just protect their own like they always do? I cannot promise you the outcome you want, David said honestly. But I can promise you this. Every complaint that gets filed creates a record. Every record makes it harder for bad officers to hide. Every time we speak up, we make it a little bit safer for the next person. Thank you, sir, the Marine said. I saw your video. It helped me realize I was not crazy, that it really was wrong what happened to me. After hanging up, David finally headed to his car. The sun was setting as he drove out of the Pentagon parking lot. The same route he took every evening. The same streets he had driven for years. He passed through Oakwood Heights, going exactly the speed limit. He saw Mrs. Patterson watering her garden. She waved. He waved back. He saw Mr. Thompson washing his car. They exchanged nods. As David turned onto his street, he saw a police car parked at the stop sign ahead. His heart rate increased slightly. Some reactions were hard to unlearn. But he kept driving normally. He had nothing to hide. He belonged here. The police car was still there as David approached. He could see the officer inside. Young, white, male. The officer looked up as David drove past. For a moment, their eyes met. The officer nodded respectfully. David nodded back. Then he kept driving. He pulled into his driveway and sat in the car for a moment. 6 months ago, he would have been tense the entire drive home, watching every police car, wondering if he would be pulled over again. Living with that fear and anger eating away at him, he still felt some of that. Trauma did not just disappear because justice was served, but it was better now. He had fought back. He had used his voice. He had helped create change. That meant something. David got out of his car and walked to his front door. Inside, he could hear his kids laughing. His wife was cooking something that smelled amazing. This was home. This was what he had been trying to get back to that night when Hutchins pulled him over. Just the simple right to come home to his family without being harassed. His son ran to the door when he heard David come in. "Dad, you are home." "I am home," David said, picking up his son and hugging him tight. Later that evening, David received another email. This one was from a sergeant at a different police department in another state. The sergeant was starting a reform program and wanted advice on what had worked in David's community. She wanted to know how to build trust with military families and communities of color. David opened his laptop and began typing a response. He shared what he had learned. Be transparent. Listen to complaints without being defensive. Hold bad officers accountable even when it is hard. Build relationships before there is a crisis. And most importantly, remember that the badge is supposed to protect everyone, not just some people. He hit send and closed his laptop. His phone buzzed again. Another text. This time from a young Asian American soldier who had just filed a complaint after being profiled. "Thank you for showing us it is okay to stand up," the message read. David felt tired but also hopeful. This fight was not over. There would be more officers like Hutchins, more complaints, more resistance to change, but there would also be more people willing to speak up, more officers like Hayes willing to do the right thing, more communities demanding better. He walked to his son's bedroom and looked in on him sleeping. In a better world, his son would never have to worry about being pulled over for no reason. He would never have to give his kids the talk about how to act when police stop you. He would never have to decide between staying silent or speaking up. David could not promise his son that world. Not yet. But he could promise to keep fighting for it, one complaint at a time, one reform at a time, one conversation at a time. He went to his own bedroom where Jennifer was already in bed reading. She looked up and smiled. "Long day?" "Long 6 months," David said, sitting down next to her. "Worth it?" she asked. David thought about the young private who had thanked him, the Marine who had called for advice, the reforms that were being implemented, the officers being held accountable, the community that had come together to demand change. "Yeah," he said. "Worth it." His phone buzzed one more time. He looked at the screen. Another message from someone who needed help, someone who had been pulled over, someone who felt alone and powerless. David picked up his phone and began typing. "Tell me what happened. I will help however I can." Because that was the promise he had made, not just to the people who had reached out, but to himself. He would use his voice. He would use his platform. He would use his experience. He would help however he could. The fight for justice and equality was not something you won once and then walked away from. It was something you had to keep fighting for every single day. Some days the progress was big. Some days it was small. But every day mattered. David Kim, colonel in the United States Army, had learned that lesson the hard way. But he had learned it well. And he would keep fighting until every person in this country could drive home without fear, until every service member felt respected in the country they defended, until the promises of America were real for everyone, not just some. That was a mission worth dedicating his life to. And he was just getting started.